Luisa, it's a great pleasure to meet you, and thank you very much indeed for welcoming us here. The booth, the space is absolutely beautiful, and I'm very excited to be talking to you. So thank you. Your gallery is the oldest and one of the most respected contemporary galleries in Brazil and Latin America. Your maternal grandfather designed São Paulo's first and iconic skyscraper, the Martinelli edifice. One of the first shows that you produced was a pioneering one. It was on American pop art, including names such as Andy Warhol and Liechtenstein. Your gallery was the first Latin American gallery to take part in Art Basel. You are an absolute icon of Latin American art and establishment. How is your business currently doing? Who are your clients? Congratulations, you've survived through Brazilian history.
Yes, it's a long journey. I don't know how we survive, but it's step by step, with good moments, with bad moments. At the moment, we have bad moments.
Right. Yeah.
We are having elections this weekend, and well, I hope we survive again.
Right.
And my best clients are mainly in the United States and Europe. I mean Paris and London.
Right. Paris and London.
Paris and London.
Right.
In Europe.
In Europe.
Yes.
Do you have many loyal Brazilian clients as well that have been buying from you?
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
But I sell 70% more to outside Brazil.
Wow. This is really good.
Yes.
Yeah. This is very good. So that of course shows that your gallery is internationally renowned, and there's people when they go to Brazil, they look for you, for your eye.
I don't know, but usually all of them come to my gallery, which is very good for me and a pleasure. And I like to sell outside. When I started the gallery, my main point was to show Brazilian art outside Brazil.
Right.
And that at that time it was very, very difficult because we were in a dictatorship, and export was even forbidden. I couldn't go to import or export art at that moment.
This is incredible.
Yes, incredible. In '89 was the first time that I left Brazil for a fair, which was in Cologne.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
And then the next year, on the 19th, I start going to Basel.
Right.
And well, here I am. But
it must have done something extraordinary, really good for the international art establishment to look at your gallery and say, we'd like to have her here at Basel, for instance. You must have worked very hard.
I don't know, I was invited. At that time there was no applications for
Right.
the fair,
Yeah.
for the fairs. We were invited. And I was invited, I was in Cologne, I was invited to go to Basel, and it was very expensive for me to do one fair at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I left Cologne and started going only to Basel for many years.
Right.
And then I started doing some fairs that I like very much, which are in South America, like Mexico, Guadalajara,
Right.
Argentina, and that's how I started spreading my artists, and then to the States, New York and Miami.
Right. The United States is an interesting market and country because Americans seem to understand Latin American art, or at least have featured more in exhibitions than Europeans, and
Well, yes, I don't know why they have more relationship with Brazil and with Brazilian art.
neighbors.
Made neighbors, but it's fun because when I started, Rio had some artists that São Paulo didn't know. You know that?
This is extraordinary.
And the contrary also. So that happens in Latin America. And that's why I started showing, to make it more, showing Brazilian artists outside and bringing Latin American artists in my gallery.
Right.
So to interchange all this public.
It's very interesting. I also think because Brazil is the only Portuguese-speaking country in Latin America, somehow Brazilians and Brazil feel a little bit more isolated from what's happening elsewhere
I don't
in
know,
Latin
because
America.
maybe it's not that, because Rio and São Paulo, we had different public, we had different artists.
Yes.
You know, some of them they were not known in São Paulo, and some were not known in Rio.
And it's only 50
And
minutes
it's the
flying.
same language, 500 kilometers of distance.
Yes.
So, you know,
Yeah.
it's complicated.
Well, the old rivalry.
Yeah, it's, I don't know how to explain this. It's a lack of, not so many magazines,
Yes,
not so
yeah.
many travels. We have the biennial, but that was not enough,
Right.
I think.
To promote,
Yeah.
art in both cities.
Yeah.
So going back to the perceptions of Latin American art in Europe, what makes Latin American art attractive to the European eye? How do the Europeans see Latin American art, you think, from your experience? Do you think they see it differently compared to the Americans?
I think that what they like mainly is because it's a fresh art.
Right.
There's no, we for a long time we don't have art schools.
Yes.
So the artists they start learning with another artist older, and instead of having a school, an art school.
Yeah.
So they don't have, how we say.
I suppose the education, the training.
No, but the training puts you in a road.
Of course.
You cannot do that. You cannot do that. You have to do that. With Brazilian arts, this doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
So it's much more natural. It's much more free of
Rules.
rules.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's why Brazilian art is interesting, you know.
Yeah.
And we could do anything. Ligia Clark started doing other things, psychiatrist.
It's incredible, what she did, and so transgressive.
Exactly. We are much more transgressive. That's the word you said.
It's a very good answer actually. The Brazilian art somehow stopped following, or has never really followed those rules that imposed upon European academies of art.
Exactly, academies. You're right. Yeah.
Do you think, however, with Brazil, I'm talking about from Fernando Henrique Cardoso's government or from Lula's government, when Brazil became more open, do you think that the Europeans became more aware of what was happening in Latin America and Brazil in terms of art and understanding the region better?
No, yes, of course. We had a biennial in I don't know when, in the late 90s, which was the best biennial. I
remember that.
The one made by Paulo Herkenhoff.
That's right, yeah.
And then it was the first time that they brought lots of foreign people to see the biennial. And that was a point, from then on, there's an interchange.
Interchange,
between Brazil and Europe. We have Inhotim that brings lots of people to Brazil. We have even the biennials, and foreign people are much more invited to see Brazilian art than before.
Right.
And this helped a lot. And also we have the fairs we bring Brazilian arts outside.
Yes.
So it's
You show here Frieze in
Exactly,
London, you show at
yeah.
Basel as well.
not only me, but of many galleries, of course.
It's very interesting because I was counting out of the 16 galleries from Latin America showing a frieze this year, only 6 are from São Paulo. And that leads me to another question. What makes Brazil's largest city have such a thriving hub for the private art sector? São Paulo is a huge potency in terms of the private art sector. Out of 16 galleries from Latin America, huge continent, 6 are from São Paulo. Do you think there's something special about the city in relation to art? The market is good?
Yes, we are the biggest city in Latin America. We have many galleries. For instance, I was in the board of the committee of Basel Miami Art Fair.
Right.
When I started there, I think it was in the beginning of the 21st century, we had 3 or 4 galleries from Brazil. When I left in 2013, I don't remember, there were 20 galleries coming from Brazil. So it was an improvement.
It's a huge improvement.
Yeah.
Representation. I love the fact that you are a Paulista gallery, a Brazilian gallery, but you represent a wide scope of Latin American artists. So you have, currently on your portfolio, you have Juan Araujo from Venezuela, you have Gabriel Sierra from Colombia, Magdalena Jitrick from Argentina, Pedro Rios from Mexico, and many others. And from Brazil, you've got Silda Meirelles and Alexandre da Cunha, who's based in London. You've been in business for many years, so what's your criteria in terms of choosing to represent an artist? Do you think that intuition plays a big role in that as well?
Yes, for me, yes. It's some things that I feel here. I cannot explain.
Gut instinct.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yes. Well, that's the beginning. After that, I have to look after what the artist has done and what he's doing, what he will be doing.
It's so you said before that travel is something important to you.
Yes.
Right? You travel a lot to other Latin American countries to see things.
Yes.
And new people. Is that through your travels as well that you get the inspiration? Or it's from people approaching you?
No, I think it's from the streets.
Right.
I don't know how to explain it, but walking and seeing people, and there's a connection with what should be doing now.
Right.
I don't know if I explain it, but there's a connection between what you see in a city, and what the artists are confronting.
Absolutely, yes.
I think
how they're responding to certain realities in a city.
Yes, maybe it has to be a connection between these two things.
Absolutely.
Art and life.
Yes, art and life. That's very compelling, very beautiful to put it in that way. Art and life, always together.
Yes.
Parallel. My last question for you is, of course, the recent tragedy that occurred in Rio de Janeiro with the National Museum. Everybody in Europe, and around the world, I suppose, was outraged, angry, sad, upset. I was greatly upset. So, who should be blamed for this tragic negligence?
I think that we all should be blamed, because we should demand the government to do things, and we don't do that. That's my opinion. The government doesn't care, and we are apathic.
Yes, absolutely. we don't
That's
take
our
action.
fault.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's some shocking figures, such as only 500,000 reais were given to the museum per year. No ministers.
Don't mention
no
because
ministers
it's
were
terrible.
present
Exactly.
At the museum. So it's very, very.
And all the money
frustrating.
from the culture goes to the wrong.
Well, the worrying thing about the up and coming elections now, in relation to cultural policy, is that none of the candidates really talk much about culture.
But nobody cares for culture in Brazil.
Like Fernanda Montenegro has said.
She said that?
She said something really beautiful about theatre. She said the theatre in Brazil, it was very beautiful, is in the underground compared to TV.
I always say that art in Brazil is in the kitchen. Not that the kitchen is not important, but it's something always left.
Do you think it's a problem with education? Really?
Education, of course.
I was trained in history of design at the Victoria and Albert Museum, so I was almost brainwashed by curators and conservators. You've got to take care of this. You've got, the Europeans are obsessed with keeping their past and preserving it. And I did research at the Museum of Modern Art in São Paulo, at the library, and I remember talking to many professionals from the museum world in Brazil. And at the time, even trying to sort of pin down projects, with museums coming from London, but they just don't. There isn't a drive.
Exactly.
It's static.
And at school, for instance, they don't have art to study. In the basic school, no, nothing. They took it out. You don't need to learn art or study art.
So of course people grow up with no education in art,
No
and how
education,
important history of art is, or art as a whole. For a country that has produced beautiful, strong culture, music,
exactly,
art. Yeah, it's very sad. I hope that moving forward things will improve, and from this weekend, from this weekend with the elections, upcoming elections. Luisa Strina, it's been a total pleasure to talk to you.
My pleasure too. Thank you so much.
Very kind. Thank you very much indeed.